It's not a term used to bring down a structure. It's not a term used to initiate any type of explosive demolition or to bring a building down. Silverstein would not even have been in a position to issue that order. That's a comment that's been taken way out of context.
Conspiracy theories love a vacuum, and Building 7 is a major focus precisely because initially there wasn't as much evidence and there wasn't as much known about what really happened in World Trade Center 7, and the investigators were open and honest about the fact they just didn't know as much about it. The conspiracy theorists have seized on that and said, see, if you can't prove exactly how this building fell, then it had to have been intentionally blown up.
The building came down with all the characteristics of a classic controlled demolition. It was an abrupt, total, and complete collapse at the speed of free fall.
Others lay out a radically different sequence of events. You're about to hear their claims, followed by the analysis of experts who say it's important to refute each and every theory that is not based on the true evidence.
There seems to be this theory that there were these various agencies that I guess had paperwork or things on their computers that needed to be utterly destroyed by manner of destroying the entire building. That seems like quite a long way to go to take out a couple of computers or file cabinets, but in the conspiracy theory realm, that's the sort of stuff that passes for a good idea.
I was in the World Trade Center 7 on a number of occasions. This was an office building in downtown New York. I mean, the fact that there were some government agencies in there is certainly true, but there are lots of other people in there too, and you could have rented an office or floor, anybody could.
Building 7 housed the Office of Emergency Management, which was the office designed by Jerome Howard to deal with New York during a terrorist attack.
From hurricanes and heat waves to bioterrorism, New York City is gearing up for the worst.
We've got PD, fire, EMS.
The emergency exercise was staged with local, state, and federal officials on hand
to help identify the source of the outbreak.
A hypothetical outbreak caused by a deadly biological agent had been released by unknown terrorists somewhere in New York City.
Tell them to expect notification from us. We may ask them to close the.
It wasn't the first time New York City ran an exercise reacting to a potential crisis, but it was the first to be run out of the city's new $13 million high-tech emergency operations center.
The city is better prepared than it ever has been in its history.
The new facility is located in downtown Manhattan, across the street from the World Trade Center's Twin Towers. The command center on the 23rd floor is bulletproof and bomb-resistant, with its own air supply and generators. It's linked to city airports, the Coast Guard, and the Pentagon. Computers will soon have detailed blueprints of every major building in New York City, as well as evacuation routes. Hurricanes and heat waves would be handled here, as well as terrorist attacks.
Particularly when it comes to biological terrorism, no city is where we're at.
Shortly after the bombing of the World Trade Center, New York City scrapped its existing emergency plans and began writing new ones. A couple of years later, following the bombing of the federal building in Oklahoma City, Congress passed a law calling for 120 of the nation's largest cities to be prepared for terrorist attacks.
I think New York City is very ready, very prepared.
Though New York officials say their facility is not impenetrable, they're confident it could handle even the worst crisis imaginable.
Also in that building, the New York offices of the U.S. Secret Service.
And has confirmed reports that the CIA had an undercover office in 7 World Trade Center. One of the buildings destroyed along with the Twin Towers September the 11th. U.S. official tells CNN the office was involved in counterterrorism and counterintelligence. The official says no CIA employees were killed in the collapse.
Number 7 World Trade Center was also the New York office of the Central Intelligence Agency. The CIA ordered the building surrounded by FBI agents shortly after it collapsed.
It housed the offices of the Securities and Exchange Commission, the joint FBI-CIA counterterrorism group that ironically tracked bin Laden. It was a spook house filled with intelligence officials.
When you watch the collapse on the video, often you'll hear conspiracy theories say, look at this, doesn't it look like a controlled demolition? Well, it turns out this is what buildings look like when they fall down. If you destroy important structural elements that hold up a building from the inside, if you destroy that inside the building is going to collapse in a manner that's not that different visually from a controlled demolition.
What do falling buildings look like? What do demolitions look like? We are seeing typical implosions, characterized by gutting a building's base and then pulling it into itself. Computer-controlled sequencing fires the explosives in a rapid wave. Notice the jets of shooting concrete, the flashes, the pops, the caving of the buildings as they fall into their footprint, the tremendous billowing clouds of dust.
May 4th, 1988, the First Interstate Bank, a 62-story building in Los Angeles, California, suffered a 3.5-hour fire which burned across 5 floors and caused an estimated $200 million of damage. It did not collapse. February 23rd, 1991, the One Meridian Plaza, a 38-story building in Philadelphia, suffered an 18-hour fire which burned across 8 floors. The fire caused an estimated $100 million worth of damage and 3 firefighters died fighting it. It was later described by officials as the most significant fire of the century. It did not collapse. October 17, 2004, the East Tower of the Park Central complex in Caracas, Venezuela suffered a 17-hour fire which spread across 26 of its 56 floors. It did not collapse. August 18, 2007, a fire broke out on the 17th floor of the Deutsche Bank building in New York, a building undergoing deconstruction after being heavily damaged by debris from the South Tower on 9/11. Originally 41 stories in height, it had been reduced to 26 at the time of the fire, which lasted 7 hours and affected a total of 10 floors. 2 firefighters died of smoke inhalation. It did not collapse. On 9/11 itself, 5 World Trade Center, a 9-story building east of the North Tower, was engulfed in flames after sustaining heavy damage from falling debris. A number of partial collapses occurred, but the overall structure remained standing. February 9, 2009, the Mandarin Oriental Hotel in Beijing was completely engulfed in flames for more than 3 hours during the Lunar New Year celebrations. The fire affected all 44 floors, igniting fireworks as it burned. 1 firefighter died fighting it. It did not collapse. February 12, 2005, the Windsor Tower in Madrid suffered a severe fire on its upper floors for more than 24 hours. This building had 32 stories, 29 above ground and 3 below. It was framed primarily in reinforced concrete with steel perimeter columns supporting the floors above the 17th. The steel columns did collapse, but the collapse events were spread over a period of several hours. The rest of the structure remained standing.